Details, details, details. Well, at least we have the M12 fuel detail sander. This is the Milwaukee 2531, and it's their Orbital detail sander. This thing has 4 different speeds and turns quite a few RPM. No RPM, OPM, orbits per minute. Anyway, let's dig in and take a closer look at this little guy and see if it's something that's feasible and something that'll work out to earn a place in your shop. This is the Milwaukee 2531. It's their Orbital detail sander. Now, it is part of the M12 fuel platform, so we do get a brushless motor that's driving this and providing the power. Now, we got to see this, I think, in June or August of this year at one of the Milwaukee pipeline events. I don't remember which one. I believe the one in June. Anyway, regardless, we got to see this at Pipeline and use it, and we're very impressed. This was one of those tools that when we used it, I wasn't expecting a lot. I was thinking, okay, it's another sander. But I'm telling you, the refinement on this is very impressive. The feel of it, everything, as well as the features, and we'll dig into that here in one moment. But as you get the tool, you can get this as a bare tool. You can also get it as a kit. I've seen it as a kit with a 2 amp hour battery, not with the XC batteries. But regardless, you get it as a kit, and you get 9 pieces of sandpaper as well. You get 3 pieces of 80 grit, 3 pieces of 120, and 3 pieces of 180 as well. So 80, 120, and 183 of each of those. You also get an interface pad, which we'll go over what that is in a moment, as well as a pad saver. So 2 different things. This is an interface pad. This is a pad saver, and again, we'll get into the details of that in one moment. Well, let's go ahead and throw a battery on here and look at the size of this. I'm going to put this is the new 2.5 amp hour high output CP 2.5. So the compact M12, but 2.5 amp hour, where the older ones were the 2 amp hour. Anyway, so we'll throw that on there, and we'll talk about, what it weighs, how long it is, and so forth. So just under 2 pounds. So a pound, actually 1.75 pounds, and that's with the 2.5 amp hour battery on there. And if you want longer run times on this, then I'll throw the 4.0 on there. And so you're still just barely over 2 pounds. So very light tool, because it is an M12 tool, so you're going to stay lighter than an M18 would be. So we're going to call this under 2 pounds if you want the smaller, more compact 2 or 2.5 amp hour battery on there. Now, we'll see right away we get a trigger on this tool, so that's what's going to activate the actual pad to oscillate, or actually it does not oscillate, so that is a very big point. This pad does not oscillate, it orbits. It is an orbital detail sander. So let's get into that right now. So typically, a lot of the power tool companies, I shouldn't say typically, but a lot of the power tool companies going to a detail sander or using their oscillating multi-tool to do sanding, what you get is on your oscillating blades, they go back and forth like this. So that's what you're going to get on your sanding motion, and something that if you're staining or if you're looking for something really flat, you're probably going to see those scratches. Somebody with a trained eye is going to see those scratches because, again, that blade goes back and forth, and so when you just put a pad on there, doesn't matter if it's a triangle or circle or whatever, it's still just going to sweep back and forth. That's what it does. Or rock back and forth. Regardless, you're getting that sanding back and forth motion, not sand on, sand off. Anyway, so on the orbit, we're actually getting little orbits. Okay? Now, it's not a random orbital, so it is not going like this on a random orbital where it goes around in circles. So a random orbital would both go these little orbits as well as it would go around in a circle. It is not a random orbital. It's not a dual action. It's just a orbital. So it just goes round and round like this. And just to give you an idea, it's a 1.5 millimeter orbit. So let's see if we can get, there's 1.52. That's probably as close as I'm going to get. So there's your orbit size on this detail sander. Now again, it's not orbiting and circling, orbiting and rotating. It's just orbiting. But again, you get a very small circle on that. Now with the trigger, we get a variable speed trigger. And we can have speeds up to 14,000 OPM, or oscillations per minute. Now, that's also controlled, the max speed, by the number you select. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 4 is going to give you that 14,000 oscillations per minute if you grab a whole handful of trigger, as well as having it in speed 4. Now, you also have a trigger lockout, so you can lock that on and continue to sand without having to hold that trigger down. But again, speed 1 is going to give you a lot slower speed than speed 2, 3, and 4. That's incrementally going to get faster. Again, dial in. You can start slow if you wanted to, with just, getting into a tight corner or something like that, and work it with that trigger and then speed it on up. Now let's take a look here. Let's go ahead and take this pad off before we get a piece of sandpaper on there. And we'll see a couple of things here. So obviously we've got this kind of home plate looking triangle and a square. And, it sticks out the front where you can get to areas that you need to. But you can also index this. So you see we have a hexagon shape under there. So if we needed to turn that, you have 6 different positions that you can actually put this in to be able to get in the spots that you need and be able to sand. So you can turn that. Now, something interesting here, this, again, since it's not a rotator, it's not a rotary, you see all this does is oscillate in small circles. So this is not spinning around at all. All it's doing is doing these little bitty 1.5 millimeter orbits. So again, you can index that in 6 different locations. Now you'll see on our sandpaper, again, pretty typical, hook and loop. So we have the hooks on here, we have the loops on here, so just like most of your sandpaper. And then we have the pad saver, and what this is going to do, literally what this is meant to do, is this is meant to take the brunt of your sanding. Instead of wearing out your hooks here on your actual pad, you can put your pad saver on there. If I put it on the right way, there we go. And so now, as it wears out, as you wear down and hit those nails and everything else, it will wear this piece out rather than your actual pad. And for every box of sandpaper you buy, you'll get a few of these. In fact, this 36-piece kit, it actually comes with 3 of the pad savers in it. So as you buy those, you're going to get more of these that, again, are going to take the brunt. Whereas this is an interface pad, and you can see how squishy that is. And what this comes in handy for are when you're doing contours and things like that. And again, we'll put that into play here in a few moments. But as we sand, so especially let's say we're doing our first cut at 80 grit. Say we're wanting to do some heavy cutting, so we got some 80 grit. So as we sand, and we sand through that pad, or take the sandpaper further than we should, that pad saver is going to take the brunt of any damage versus hurting your pad. All right, as we showed you, we put on the piece of 80 grit, and that's going to be some pretty heavy cutting. So we'll just put some marks here in our wood with a razor knife, and then I'm going to start on speed 1. Go ahead and lock this out. Now, I'd never grab this to do heavy cutting, but those marks that we put in there are almost gone. So a few seconds, I wouldn't even call that a minute of sanding. We're pretty close to having those gone. Let's go up to 3. So I can see a couple left right here. Yeah, there's some left there too. And I'm sure with enough sanding. Pretty impressive little detail sander. I'm just going to move up to our 120 here. let's put some pencil marks here. And that's the beauty of this guy, is being able to get right in there. You see when I really not lean on it hard, but just kind of lean it up to really get in that crevice. It's taking care of all that was right up against that piece of wood there. So if you're doing detail sanding on door trim or crown molding, what have you, you can still get in there. Or even on a vehicle trying to get around tight spots, be a great sander for that. Really and truly, the precision you can get with that is really interesting. Much better than any oscillating tool I've used before in doing something like this. And the power. I mean, I can bear down on that all I want and I'm not stopping it. Even with the 80 grit on there, it'll just continue to cut, especially in the speed 4. Go down to 1. Yeah, I'm pressing down hard. So even on not, go back to the 80. Really works well. Now let's throw on the interface pad, and we can leave our pad saver on there if we want to. And we're going to throw the interface pad on there. And what that's going to do is give us a lot of forgiveness, especially doing contours and things like that. So you can see here with that interface pad, see what it's going to do now. Now when we have a piece of sandpaper on there, it's going to give us the ability to cover more than just that very top section of that round stock. So now we're getting a nice even profile on that curvature rather than just getting a lot of flat spaces if all we did was leave our pad saver on and try to sand it this way. Now we're just going to get a lot of flat spots. This is going to give us more of the profile that we're looking for. So that's what that interface pad is going to do. And that also works really well when you get into higher grit or finer grit sandpaper and you're trying to get a nice level surface. It keeps you from gouging places, but again, that may be for another day. Typically with wood, you're going to 180, 220 and stopping it there. Now, as I mentioned, with the sander, you get 9 pieces. You get 3 80 grit, 3 120, and 3 180. And then you can also get a 36 pack, which also comes with 3 more pad savers, and that's going to give you 12 of each, 12 of 80, 12 of 120, and 12 of 180. Now, what if you do want to go finer? Let's say you're, trying to get a lot nicer finish on some polyurethane or something like that. Well, just find you some sandpaper. I've got some Mirka 320 right here, and I'll just throw it on the pad. And now I've got some 320. So you're definitely not stuck to using the Milwaukee paper, although it does seem to be some quality stuff. Love to see that. This really is an impressive little sander. It's a detail sander, and it has plenty of power to do anything you need to do as far as detail sanding using a little pad like this. It really works quite well. We were impressed at how tight we could get into those corners and actually sand where we need to sand. And I like the fact that we can index this at 6 locations if we need to turn that so that you can get the spot where you need to get. So don't forget that. We also like the fact that it comes with a pad saver. I would highly recommend always using that pad saver because that's going to save your actual pad, because you're always going to use that sandpaper further than it needs to go, as well as you're going to hit those nails and brads and things like that, and it's going to tear it. It'll tear that pad saver and not the actual pad that's going to cost you more money. I think the pad's actual $20-25. And the pad saver you're going to get, again, with each box of sandpaper that you purchase. Now, let's talk about that price. This is $149 for the bare tool. So bare tool on its own, you're going to pay $149, and you're going to get the 9 pieces of sandpaper as well as the interface pad and the pad saver, and that's what you're going to get for $149, and you're going to get a 5-year warranty. Now, you can buy a kit where it comes with a 2 amp hour, not the 2.5, but with a 2 amp hour battery, and a charger and the sandpaper, and that's only going to be $179. I would highly recommend doing that. I mean, you're going to get a charger to boot as well, so you're going to get a full working kit for just $179, and again, get a 5-year warranty also. Their sandpaper seems to be very decent, seems to work really well. Now, I will say this box of sandpaper of 36 pieces is like $38. I think that's pretty stout. You may want to, cut your own sandpaper or get your own sandpaper. But if you want to go ahead and get Milwaukee's, sandpaper, and again, it comes with the 3 pad savers as well, $38 for this little box. And you may be able to find other deals on that as well. We'll have a link in the description for this. Very impressed with this. And by the way, we get an LED light there on the front of it as well. Love the variable speed trigger. Love the fact that we can also set the max OPM, or oscillations per minute, right there on the tool as well. So we get 4 different speeds as well as a variable speed where we can kind of dial in what we need. And be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even TikTok. And if you don't mind, would you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already? And by all means, if you hated our video, then give us a thumbs down. But would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day and keep smiling.